Assalamu alaikum everyone. Let me know if you guys can hear me all right. Walaikum salam Arham and walaikum salam Shayan. Walaikum assalam Moiz. Okay, would appreciate that before we start, if you guys could just like the stream, that would mean a lot. Sir, have been watching your videos since O-level, but I would really appreciate if you post more on A-level maths. Yeah, I am gradually posting on A-level maths also. Okay, so you can. Recently, I did a stream of circular measure, and the next stream is very likely going to be on differentiation. Yeah, differentiation or functions. Okay, but yeah, in the next couple of months, you can expect a lot of A-level content. Okay, sir, please give any tips how to prepare maths for mid so that we can at least 80%. Just pick up a book, decide the topic and study. Okay, don't look for the best strategy. Okay, don't get lost in trying to find the best strategy. Just decide a topic. Okay, see if it's relevant, in the sense that see if it's in your syllabus, and just start watching videos on it, start solving questions. That's it. Okay, just go old fashioned. No need to waste time looking for the perfect strategy, looking for tips here and there. Everyone's going to tell you the same thing. Everyone's just going to tell you to start studying. Okay, so just do that. Okay. Sergi, but it's only subscribe. Yes, that's the plan. Okay. Or anyway, so let's start, shall we? So the idea for the reason behind today's stream is to do vectors. Now I have a lot of videos on vectors already. Okay, but in those videos I've covered the concepts. Okay, so today we will just go over the concepts. Okay, but our primary focus is going to be on past paper questions, because see, there are a few topics that you can do all the concepts as you like, but if you start solving past paper questions, you will always get stuck. And I think a classic example of that topic would be angle properties of circles, transformation, and vectors. Okay, vectors is also one of those topics. Okay, Moiz beta, you can message me on Instagram. I'll give you all the details for what I'm charging and everything. All okay. So for topics like these, it's best to solve past paper questions. And remember, when you solve past paper questions, you're very likely to get stuck. Okay, it's not because you don't know the concepts very well. It's just because what you do in the book or what you do when you're covering the concepts is completely different compared to the type of questions that you have in past papers. Okay, so that's the thing. That's why you need to do a lot of questions. You need to first solve a lot of questions with your teacher or whoever it is. Okay, before you can sort of get into the rhythm of things. Okay, get into the flow of things. And that's the case with, like I said, with angle properties of circles, with vectors, with transformation, perhaps to some extent even with loci. Okay, sir, kitni der lagegi to finish vectors today? Well, I'm gonna try and solve as many questions as possible. Okay, I've underlined a few questions, highlighted a few questions that we're going to solve. Okay, but before that, just go over the notes with me. Okay, now the primary concepts as far as vectors are concerned are three. Okay, addition of vectors, subtraction of vectors, and then ratio. Okay, which includes parallel and everything. Okay, Moiz, just drop me a message again. I will get back to you. Okay, anyway, so as I was saying, there are three main concepts. Okay, addition, subtraction, and then everything to do with ratios. Okay, which includes parallel and, like I said, everything to do with ratios. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to do now is, like I said, I'm just going to quickly go over a few rules. Okay, so one of them is addition of vectors, as you can see over here. Okay, so whenever you have to add two vectors, what do you make sure of? You make sure that you're following the head to tail rule. Okay, which means that you have to make sure that the head of one vector, like b in this case, is the same as the tail of the other vector. Only then can you add the two vectors. So AB plus BC equals to AC, and PQ plus QR equals to PR. And it's not necessary that you can only add two vectors. Okay, you can add as many vectors as you like, as long as you're following the head to tail rule. Okay, so PQ plus QR becomes PR, and then you can add RS to it. So as a result, you get PS. Okay. And then one thing to keep in mind is that if you're adding two vectors such that the other vector is the complete opposite of the first one, the result is basically 0. Okay. And then for subtraction, by the way, I've attached the PDF of these notes, okay, on in the description. You can download it from there if you like. Go over it. This should help, inshallah. Now, with subtraction of vectors, remember it is the starting point that needs to be the same. So if you have OB minus OA, that's going to be equal to AB. So remember it like this, that the letter that's closer to the equals to sign comes first, and the letter that's further away from the equals to sign comes after. Okay. So just like that, if you have OY minus OX, that's going to be equal to XY. If you have AP minus AQ, that's going to be equal to QP. If you have OL minus OM, M comes first, L comes later. Okay. And then this whole concept is also important. It's called position vector. It's a vector that's relative to origin. So whenever you're writing down the coordinates of a point, you can also write that point in vector form by writing it as OA. Okay, because O is our starting point. Whatever point that we mark on the XY plane, the starting point is always O. Okay, so whenever the question says find the position vector of A, it's technically asking you to find the coordinates of A. Okay, or in other words, if the question says find the coordinates of A, it's asking you to find the position vector of A. Okay. Yes, these streams will be available later. Okay, don't worry about that. All right, so I'm focusing on what I'm doing right now. Okay, so I may miss your message from the chat. Okay. All right, then comes the main concept. Okay, and that is basically ratio. Okay. Now, ratio in vectors is perhaps the most frequently tested concept. Okay, and it's also perhaps one of those topics in which students, you guys, basically struggle a lot. Okay. Now, there are two cases if you think about it. Okay. So here's an example in which the total is given. Now, when I say total is given, I mean total vector is given. Okay. So let me show you what I mean over here. So in this question, you're given that OA. So all this information that I'm writing down is something that you're already given in the question. Okay. You're given that OA equals to A. Okay. And you're given that OB equals 3B. Okay. And then there's a point on X, on AB, X, which says that AX and XB are in the ratio 1:3. So that means this is one part and XB is 3 parts. Okay. So that means the line AB is basically split into 4 parts. Okay. The line AB is split into 4 parts. Okay. It's generally like ratios. Okay. When you divide something in the ratio 1:3, that means you're splitting it in 4 parts and you're giving one part to one person and you're giving 3 parts of the 4 to the other person. Okay, and that's how it works. AX and XB are in the ratio 1:3. Okay, now notice something over here. You don't know what AX is, you don't know what XB is, but what you can find out is, you can find out what AB is. Okay, so that's what we've done over here. What you need to do is, you need to write both vectors as a fraction of the total vector AB. So AX and XB together make AB, okay, which makes up 4 parts. Okay, that means if I want to write AX as a fraction of the total, so AX is 1 part out of 4, so that means AX is equals to 1/4 of AB. Okay, so that way I can find out what AX is equals to. It's equal to 1/4 of minus A plus 3B. Okay, why minus A plus 3B? Because that's what AB is equal to. AO plus OB. AO is minus A, OB is 3B. Okay. And just like that, XB, which is 3 out of 4 parts, so XB is equals to 3/4 of AB, so XB is going to be equal to 3/4 of minus A plus 4B, because, actually, sorry, not minus A plus 4B, minus A plus 3B, I just realized that, made an error. Okay, alright, so that's case 1. Case 2 is when total is not given. Okay, so here's another example. You can see that OA is equals to A, and AC is equals to 3 times of OA. Okay, so that means AC is basically 3 times of OA. Okay, so here we don't have to write any vector as a fraction of the total, because the good thing is, out of these two vectors, out of AC and OA, we already know one vector. Okay, how is this different from the previous one? In this, we didn't know what AX was, we didn't know what XB was. In fact, what we knew was the total, which was AB. Okay, but here, since you already know what OA is, what you can do is you can immediately find out AC by replacing OA with A, and hence you have 3A, and then you can find out OC easily by using addition rule, which is OA plus AC, which is equal to OC, and that means A plus 3A, which is equal to 4A. Okay. Now I know this is just very basic compared to the kind of questions that we come across, and you're right. What we need to do is we need to first do past paper questions, and then you'll understand how it really works. Okay. All right. Now let's do a few questions and see how it really works. Okay. Now what I've done is from the past paper questions. So basically you'll find, again, like I said, there's a Dropbox folder which contains all the files. Okay. So you'll find one folder, one PDF which contains all the answers. Okay. And the one that I'm going to be using is the one that's without the answers, because having answers of 1 or 2 mark questions right in front can sometimes be really annoying. Okay. Okay. Any relevant questions? Nah, I don't think so. Okay. So here are some. The ones I've highlighted in green are easy. The ones I've highlighted in yellow or orange, whatever that is, those are medium level questions. Okay, and the ones in red are difficult questions. Okay, so I'm going to do a few easy questions as always, and a few medium level questions and a few really hard questions. Okay, there you go. And a few of you sent in a few questions for me to solve, so I've attached those also with your name next to it. Okay, so yeah, I'll be doing those also. Okay. All right, so here's a question. This is from IGCSE paper 2 variant 2 October-November 2020. Okay, let's see what it says. So it says here, the diagram shows a triangle OAB. Okay. So whenever you're solving a question that's related to vectors, here's my advice. Okay. First, read the entire question. Okay. Without worrying about how you're going to solve it. Okay. Once you've read the entire question, then read it again. And the second time that you're reading it, see if there's something that you can immediately find out. Like if you're given that a certain point is a midpoint of some point, see if you can find that out. If not, it's okay, nothing to worry about. When we start solving it, we'll figure it out then and then. Okay. So here's what I'm doing. I'm reading the question for the first time. It says the diagram shows a triangle OAB. So I'm reading it for the first time just to get familiar with the question. Okay. And a straight line OAC. Okay. OA and OC are in the ratio 3:5. So OA and OC. Okay, so OA and OC are in the ratio 3:5. M is the midpoint of AB. Okay. OA equals to A and OB equals to B. Okay. Now I'm going to read it again, see what I can mark. It says the diagram shows triangle OAB, a straight line OAC. All right. OA and OC are in the ratio 2:5. Now we already know that OA is equal to A. Okay. So that means this is 2 parts. Okay. And this is how many parts? This is 5 parts. Okay, that means if I want to find out AC is going to be 3 parts. Okay, but be careful. You know OA and OC are in the ratio 2:5. So OA and OC are in the ratio 2:5. Okay. That basically means that when you write it in fraction form, OA upon OC, that's equal to 2/5. Okay, now here, we don't have to express both of them as a fraction of the total. Okay. Why is that? Because out of these two, out of OA and OC, we already have OA as a vector. Okay. So that means I can simply replace OA with A and then find out OC. Okay. But that part obviously comes later. Okay. Right now, let's just see what it is that we have to do. So in the first part, we have to find AB. So what you should do is you should pick a route that takes you from A to B. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go from A to O. Okay. And then I'm going to go from O to B. So A to O is going to be minus A, and O to B is going to be B. So there you go, minus A plus B. And why minus A? I hope everyone's aware of this concept. The reason why it's minus is because we're going in the opposite direction. Okay. All right. Then comes MC, which means that we're going to have to go from M to A, perhaps, or from M to B, and then from B to O, and then from O to C. Okay. So whatever it is that you have to do, it's a good idea to first find out what OC is. Okay. So remember, OA upon OC are in the ratio 2:5. We already know what OA is equal to. So that's A upon OC, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 2/5. Now with the help of this, I can find out the vector OC. Okay. So twice of OC through cross multiplying equals to 5A, which means OC equals to 5 upon 2A. Okay. Now we have OC. Let's write that down. Okay, I'm just going to clear this up. So we have OC, which is basically 5 upon 2a. Okay. Now let's pick a route that takes us from M to C. So we could do MA and then from A to C. Okay, but I wouldn't recommend that because we don't have MA and we don't have AC. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go from M to B, and then we're going to go from B to O, and then we're going to go from O to C. Okay, so let's first write this down. So MC equals to MB plus BO plus OC. Okay, now this is where things get slightly tricky. Okay, MB is something we don't have, but we do know that M is the midpoint of AB. Okay, so that means MB is going to be equal to half of AB. Okay, that means MB is going to be equal to half of AB, which is minus A plus B. Okay, so let's bring this over here. Let's copy this and bring it here. Okay, and then in this we need to add BO. And what's BO? We have that right in front of us. BO is going to be minus B since we're going in the opposite direction. Okay, and then OC, which we just figured out to be 5 upon 2a. Okay, now this requires a decent amount of multiplication. Overall it's easy, but it's slightly lengthy. So MB is equals to minus 1 upon 2a plus half B minus B plus 5 upon 2a. Now there are a few elements that can be simplified. Okay, so oh, and by the way, this is not MB, this is actually MC now. MC. Yeah, okay. So minus half plus 5 upon 2. Let's work this out. Minus 0.5 plus 2.5. So that's 2. So we have 2a. Half minus b is minus half b. So there you go. 2a minus half b is your final answer. And let's check if it makes sense. So this is the second to last question. Okay. Okay, let me see if we have any relevant questions. Okay, I don't think we have any relevant questions. So there you go. 2a minus half b is your final answer. Okay. So is it important to attempt yearly past papers before a paper? Yes, definitely very important to attempt yearly past papers. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm just going through the messages now, looking for anything relevant. Sir, could you show some papers where there are similar triangles, concept, and vectors questions? Yes, I think I have taken out a few questions. Okay. So we'll try and cover that also. Okay. All right. Now, let's do another question. Just a second. So another question that I'm going to solve is going to be a slightly easy question before we move on to some difficult questions. Okay, so like I said, I have highlighted a few questions to solve already. Okay, let's solve this question. Let's see what it says. So it says here point A has coordinates 6, 4 and point B has coordinates 2, 7. Write AB as a column vector. Okay, so that means you need to write AB using the coordinates of A and the coordinates of B. Okay, so how do we do that? So if you know the coordinates of A and they happen to be 6, 4, you can write this in vector form, and that's going to be 6, 4. Okay, and then just like that, if you know the coordinates of B, 2, 7, you can write these in vector form also. They're going to be 2, 7. Okay, now how do I use OB and OA and turn them into AB? Okay, now remember subtraction of vectors. So if you do OB minus OA, that will result in AB. Okay, OB minus OA will result in AB. So you know the coordinates of B, that means you know the vector OB, so that's 2, 7, and you know OA, which is 6, 4. So let's work this out. 2 minus 6 is minus 4, 7 minus 4 is 3, and there you go. That's it. That's your answer. Minus 4, 3. Okay, let me see if there are any relevant questions. How can you prove when two vectors are parallel? Okay, so two vectors, the best way to prove that two vectors are parallel is through ratio. Okay, you find the ratio. If the ratio is the same, that means they're parallel. Okay, that's the best and not the only way, but yeah, perhaps the best way to prove that two vectors are indeed parallel. Okay. All right, let's pick out another question here that I'm gonna solve. Okay, let's solve this question. So this is, by the way, from May June 2020, paper 1, variant 2, and this is O-level math. Okay, IGC, not IGCSE. This is GCE. So it says here vectors P and Q are shown on the grid. On the grid, draw the vector 3P, okay, which is fairly easy, and draw the vector Q minus P. Okay. So if I want to draw 3P, now there are two ways that you can go about this question. One is that you can simply look at what vector P looks like, okay, and make a vector that is 3 times of it. So this is what P looks like, right? It's 2 units to the right and 1 unit up. And now you make a vector that's 3 times of it. So that means it's going to be 6 units to the right and 3 units up. So this is what 3P will look like. You can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 3 units up. Okay, so here's another way to do this. And the more convenient way, or the not so risky way, would be to actually write down vector P in terms of x and y. So if you look at P, it's 2 units to the right and it's 1 unit up. Okay, so that's what vector P is. It's 2, 1. Okay, so what is 3P going to look like? 3P is going to be, we're going to multiply all the elements by 3. So that means 3 into 2 and 1. So 3P is equals to 6 and 3. So here's what you can do. You can pick a starting point. Okay. And then from this point, you move 6 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 3 units up. 1, 2, 3. And there you go, where the point ends. You can join these 2 points with the help of a straight line. And now you have vector P. Okay. Now the next is Q minus P. Okay. Now how do we do Q minus P? Now we can do it the same way as we did 3P over here. Okay. Or you can do it the way that we did 3P earlier, that is by just looking at vector P and making 3 times of it. Okay, so I will suggest to do it the not so risky way. So I'm going to write down what vector Q looks like. Okay, so Q is 1 unit to the right and then it's 1, 2, 3 units down. So that means 1 and minus 3. Okay, now this is part B, by the way. Q minus P basically means 1 minus 3 minus 2 comma 1. So 1 minus 2 is minus 1, minus 3 minus 1 is minus 4. Okay, now you pick a starting point, could be anywhere on the grid, doesn't matter. Okay, and you go, actually this is not going to be enough, let's pick one over here. Okay, and from this point you move 1 unit to the left, so that's over here, and then 4 units down, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you go. This is what Q minus P looks like. Okay, and there you go. That's it. That's your answer. Okay, let me see if there are any relevant questions. Sir, the stream quality looks dope. Thank you. Okay. OA minus OB would give you BA. Yeah, that's true. OA minus OB will give you BA, not AB. Okay, what you can do is, okay, here's what you can do. You can do AO plus OB, but in that case, you'll have to change AO. You'll have to turn OA into AO by multiplying it by minus. Okay. All right. Chai or coffee? Chai. I'm a chai person, guys. Sir, how do we go about add maths? Would your AS maths videos be relevant? Yeah, quite relevant. You can use the videos for binomial, for circular measure. They're exactly the same. Okay, now, sir, can you tell about the resultant vector arrow direction? Okay, so basically, this is the point where you started from. Okay, and this is the point where you ended. From where did we start the counting? So this is where we started from, right? Starting point, ending point. So that's how you're going to decide where to point the arrow, from the starting point to the ending point. Okay, so minus 1, minus 4 means 1 unit to the left and 4 units down. So there you go. That's how you get minus 1, minus 4. Okay, and another way to do this would have been to take this vector Q and for exactly where the vector q ends, you attach minus p. So that means this is what you get, and then as a result, this is what you're going to end up with. This vector that you're looking at is going to be q minus p, okay? But you were supposed to draw it separately, okay? But you can take help from the existing vectors, okay? All right, let's do another question. Another medium level questions before we jump to the more difficult questions. Okay, let's do this. So this is a question from, again, IGCSE, October, November 2020. Okay, paper 2, variant 1. All right, let's see what it says. So it says here, the diagram shows a parallelogram CDEF. Okay, so again, same rules. I'm going to read the question the first time, and when I'm reading it for the first time, I am just reading the question, not trying to figure out the solution in my head. Okay. Then it says FE equals to M and CE equals to N. B is the midpoint of CD. All right, very helpful. FA is equals to 2 times of AC. Okay, very helpful again. Find an expression in terms of M, N for AB. Give your answer in its simplest form. Okay, great. Now let's read the question again and see what it is that we can figure out. Okay. So it says here, the diagram shows a parallelogram CDEF. Now, if you know that it's a parallelogram, there are a few things that we can say for sure. We can immediately say that CD, vector CD, is going to be equal to M, because that's what FE is equal to. Okay. Then it says FE equals to M, so we can see FE is equals to M and CE equals to N. Okay, that's great. And it says B is the midpoint of CD. Now with the help of that, what can we find out? Since B is the midpoint of CD and we already know that CD is equals to half M, so that means CB is going to be half M and BD is also going to be half M. Okay. All right. Then what it says? Then it says FA is equals to twice of AC. Okay, so there's not much we can do with this because we don't know what FA is and we don't know what AC is. At least we don't know it yet. Okay. Now let's see what the question wants us to do. So here the question, and this by the way is a 3-mark question. So it says find an expression in terms of M and N for AB. Give your answer in its simplest form. Okay. Now let's first see what it is that we can do that takes us from A to B. So AB, we can work it out like this. We can say AC plus CB. Okay, AC plus CB is what will take us from A to B. Okay, now here's a problem. The problem is we don't know what AC is equals to. Yes, we do know that FA is twice of AC. That means they're in the ratio 1:2. Okay, but still we don't know what FA or AC is equal to. Okay, so that means we're gonna have to find out CF, or in other words, let's do it like this. FA is equals to twice of AC. Let's write it like this. FA over AC, or in the ratio 2:1. Okay, that means FA is 2 parts and AC is 1 part. Okay, now the problem is, like I said, we don't have FA and we don't have AC. Okay, but what we can do is we can write both of them as a fraction of the total. Okay, so here's what I can do. I can say that FA, okay, equals to 2/3 of FC. Okay, and at the same time I can also say that AC is equal to 1/3 of FC. All right, now we go about trying to find out FC. So FC we can find by doing FE plus EC. Okay, so FC is going to be equal to M minus N. Okay, M minus N. All right, that allows us to find what? That allows us to find AC. Now we know that AC is equals to 1/3 of M minus N. Okay, and remember, what did we decide for AB? We knew that AB is basically equal to AC plus CB. Now we know what AC is. AC is 1/3 of M minus 1/3 of N plus CB, which is equal to half M. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to add 1/3 plus 1/2. Okay, so when you do that, 1/3 plus 1/2 becomes 5/6. Yeah, 5/6 M minus 1/3 N. And there you go. That is your final answer. 5/6 M minus 1/3 N. Okay, so I would say that this was quite a challenging question. Okay, what are your thoughts about this? Let me see if there are any questions. I have been doing pretty well in O-level subjects. Okay, that's great. Okay. All right. Now, here's part B. Let's see what part B says. So part B says you're given GH, okay, and I don't think it's related to the shape above. Okay, no, it's not related to the shape above, okay. So you're given GH, which is equal to 5/6 of 2p plus q, and you're given JK, which is equal to 5/8 of 2p plus q, okay. And it says write down two facts. Now you're going to get 1 mark for each fact, okay. So the first thing we look out for is if there's a common letter in the two vectors. Now, if there is a common letter in the two vectors, that means, so you wrote m 3 times. Okay, yeah, you're right. Thank you for pointing that out. 1 upon 3m minus 1 upon 3n plus half m. Okay, now it's correct. Thank you. Who was that? Abdur Rafi. Thank you. How is FC equals to FE plus FC? No, it's not FC. It's not FE plus. Yeah, it is FE plus EC. Okay, so if you want to go from F to C, okay, so you're going to go from F to E and then you're going to go from E to C. Head to tail rule. Okay, FC equals to FE plus EC. The reason why we can add the two is because both of them have the same head and tail respectively. Okay. Okay, now comes part B. Let's see what part B says. Part B says write down two facts about vectors GH and JK. Okay, so if you want to write down two facts, the first thing you look out for is if they don't have a common letter. If they don't have a common letter, you write down that they're parallel. Okay, so that's fact number 1, parallel. Okay. And then the other fact is when you write down their parallel, the next thing that you're supposed to write is the ratio of their lengths. Okay, and how do you write down the ratio of their lengths? Here's how you write it: 5/6 divided by 5/18. Okay, and when you do that, notice what happens. You have 5/6 into 18/5, so 5 and 5 gets cancelled out, and now you have 3. Okay, so that means that GH, the vector GH, is basically 3 times the vector JK. Okay, and there you go. You get 1 mark for writing that they're parallel, and you get another mark for writing the ratio in which that they're parallel. Okay, so there you go. That's it. Now, GH is not 1/3 of JK. GH is 3 times of JK. What you can do is you can write JK equals to 1/3 of GH. Okay, so you can write it like that also. I'll write it over here, or JK equals to 1/3 of GH. Okay, so both these statements get you 1 mark each. Okay, not 1 mark each actually. So irrespective of whatever you write, you get 1 mark. Okay, how do you tell if they're parallel? So if they're parallel, you can see the vectors that they have. So both of them have 2p plus q. Okay, the only difference is the ratio. So, and that's exactly the case with parallel lines. When two lines are parallel, their gradient are the same, okay, but their lengths are different. So think of vector as a gradient. Okay, so you can see that both these vectors have the same gradients. Both these lines have the same gradient. Okay, the only thing that's different is the ratio in which that they are parallel. Okay. Frabels. Okay, is that the Frabels in Karachi or the Frabels in Islamabad? Okay, I already explained that how do we know that they're parallel? So I hope that answers your question. Okay, let me pick another question. So here's another question. This was sent to me by Shahzeen. Okay, and this is from IGCSE, paper 4, variant 3, October-November 2020. Okay, this is also a medium level question, so I'm going to solve this, and then we're going to do some more difficult questions. Okay, if the brackets are the same, then they are parallel. Yes, if the two vectors inside the bracket are the same, that means they're parallel. Okay, when am I announcing the giveaway winner? Inshallah, 20th December. Okay, all right, so as I was saying, let's solve this question. It says, again, same rules, so I'm going to read the question once, and I'm not going to worry too much about how to solve it. Okay, I'm just going to be reading it. It says, in the diagram, OAB and OED are straight lines. So OAB and OED are straight lines. Okay, that's great. O is the origin, A is the midpoint of OB, and E is the midpoint of AC. Okay, O is the origin, Okay. Now let's read it again. It says in the diagram OAB and OED are straight lines. O is the origin, A is the midpoint of OB. Okay, now since we don't know what OB is, okay, there's nothing we can do. Okay, but here's something that we can do, I think. And it says E is the midpoint of AC. Now since we already know that AC equals to A, that means I can find out AE. Okay, so AE is going to be half of A. Okay, and EC will also be equal to half of A. Okay, now comes part 1. Part 1 says find AB. Okay, so let's see what it is that we can do that will take us from A to B. So we can go from A to B by first going from A to C and then going from C to B. Okay, using the head to tail rule. So what's AC equal to? AC we can see is equal to A. Okay, and what CB is equals to? We can see that's equal to B. So now you have A plus B, and there you go. That's your answer. Then comes part 2, which is OE. Okay, so how do we go from O to E? Let's see, how many marks is this? Always keep the marks in mind because that's going to tell you the amount of working that you need to do. Okay, now O to E, let's see what it is that we can do in order to go from O to E. Now bear in mind the question said that A is the midpoint of OB. Okay, A is the midpoint of OB. Now that means whatever OA is, that's going to be the same as AB. Why is that? Because A is the midpoint of, like I said, A is the midpoint of OB. Okay, so that immediately tells us one thing. That immediately tells us what OA is going to be equal to. OA is going to be the same as A plus B. That means that it's going to be same as AB. That means it's going to be A plus B. Okay, yeah, this is a hard, I don't think it's a hard level question. I think it's a medium level question. Okay, I mean, you haven't seen the hard level questions yet. Okay, so yeah, just hang in there. Let's not get carried away. Okay, so finding OA is half the work done because now we have enough information to find OE. So for OE, let's see what we can do. For OE, we can go from O to A and then from A to E. Now we already have OA, which is A plus B, and then we already have AE, which is half A. And there you go. A plus half A is 3 upon 2A plus B, and that's it. That's your final answer. Sir, how to stop yourself from, well, you didn't complete the sentence. How do you stop yourself from panicking after reading a question? Okay, I think that's a topic for a separate video. Okay, here comes part D. Part 3, which says find the position vector of D. So finding the position vector of D basically means OD. Okay, that's what you're looking for. All right, now first thing we need to do is we need to decide what it is that's going to take us from O to D. Okay, OD. Let me think. What it is do we have that we have already? So we have OE. Do we know something about E? Okay, we only know that E is the midpoint of AC. Okay. Do we know anything about D? No, we don't. Okay, now, so here's what I would prefer. Let's take this question, copy it, and bring it over here. Okay, and since it's a 3-mark question, that means there's going to be a decent amount of working that's required from us. Okay. All right, now let's see what it is that we have already. So we know that OA is A plus B. Okay, that's great. We know that AB is also equal to A plus B. Okay, and we know that OC basically is equal to what? OC is, no, actually we don't know OC. We know that OE is equals to 3 upon 2A plus B. So we have this. All right, and then what else do we know? Okay, that's pretty much all that we know. Okay, so let's see what we can do in order to find out OD. So OD can be found by basically going from O to A, okay, and then from A to E, okay, and then from E to D. Okay, now let's see if we have ED. Okay, no, we don't. We don't have ED. Okay, but there's some other concept that we're going to use over here. Okay, and what is that? Let me show you. So basically, the thing over here is, this is where questions get, this is where the concept of parallel and everything is basically used. Okay. Now, what can you tell me about OE? This is a question for you guys. Okay. What can you guys tell me about OE and ED? Okay, think about it. What can you guys tell me about OE and ED? The thing is, we don't have BD. Okay. Now, if you look at OE, let's write down the vector. OE is basically 3 upon 2A plus B. Okay. And then, if we try and find out ED, okay, ED is basically going to be EC plus CD. Now, we don't know what CD is, okay? Keep that in mind. We don't know what CD is, okay? So, we can say for sure that it's going to be A plus K times of B, okay? So, keep this in mind that EC is going to be A plus K times of B, okay? Remember, we don't know what CD is equal to, okay? Do not fall for the trap that D is the midpoint of CB. We don't know that for sure, okay? Yes, collinear vectors. Good job, Abdurrafe. They are collinear vectors. Now, when two vectors are collinear, remember their treatment is the same as parallel vectors, okay? So these two vectors are collinear vectors, okay? It's like, if you know coordinate geometry, we know that when two lines are, when you have collinear points, they have the same gradient, okay? Now, that means the ratio is going to be the same. Okay, the ratio is going to be the same. Okay, doesn't matter how you take it, whether you compare ED and OE, but the ratio is going to be the same. Okay, yes, they're collinear. Okay, so here's what we do. We take the coefficient of A, which is 3 upon 2, and we divide it by the coefficient of A from ED, which is 1, and then we take the coefficient of B from OE, which is 1, and then we take the coefficient of B from ED, which is K. Okay, now if you cross multiply, here's what happens. If you cross multiply, you get K is equals to what? K is equals to 3 upon 2. So that means that, sorry, K is not equal to 2 upon 3. If you cross multiply, you get 3 upon 2K equals to 1, which means that K is equals to 2 upon 3. Okay, so K is equals to what? K is equals to 2 upon 3B. Okay, now I'll explain this again, because this is quite tricky. Okay, so here's the concept. We've already figured out OE, which was 3 upon 2A plus B. Okay, now OA and ED are basically collinear vectors. And why is that? That's because they have a common point, which is E, and OED is a straight line. Okay, so OE is 3 upon 2A plus B. ED is basically going to be A plus something to do with B. Okay, now the next thing we do is we compare their coefficients. So we take 3 upon 2 divided by 1, and we take the coefficient of B from here, which is 1, and divide it by K. So this is what we get. We get 3 upon 2 over 1 equals to 1 upon K. Now if you cross multiply, you get 3 upon 2K, which is equal to 1. And what's K is equals to? K is equals to 2 upon 3B. Okay. Now how does this help? This helps us find out OD. Okay. How? Like this. OD is now equal to this. OD is equal to OE plus ED. So OD equals to OE, which is 3 upon 2A plus B plus ED, which we now know is A over A plus 2 upon 3B. Okay, now let's add this, see what do we get. So 3 upon 2A plus A gives us what? 3 upon 2A plus, sorry, it's not going to be A, it's actually going to be half A. Okay, sorry, just realize that it's going to be half A. Okay, no, it's not 2 upon 3, it's actually half A. Okay, so wait a minute, let's do this again. So 3 upon 2 over 1 upon 2 equals to 1 upon K. Yeah, now it makes more sense. Okay, so apologies about that. So this 2 and this 2 gets cancelled out. Now you have 3K, which is equal to 1, which means K is equals to 1 upon 3. Okay, now let's try this again. So OD equals to OE, which we have from before, 3 upon 2A plus B, plus ED, which is actually equal to half A plus 1 upon 3B. Yep, now it makes more sense. So OD equals to what? OD is equals to 3 upon 2, which is 1.5, plus 1 is equal to what? Is equal to 2A, plus B plus 1 upon 3B is equals to 4 upon 3B. Okay, so this was actually a difficult question, not a medium level question, but yeah. I hope it's clear now. And yeah, there you go. So these are things that you need to look out for whenever you're solving a question with collinear or parallel. Okay. Now let's take your questions. Sir, would it be wrong if you go from OB to BD? Now the thing is, we don't have BD. That's the problem. We don't have BD. That's why I'm not going to do that. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to solve another question. Let's pick a hard question this time. Okay. So let's solve this question. This is again from IGCSE. It's paper 2, variant 1, and May June 2022. So quite recent. Okay. All right. Let's see what this says. So it says the diagram shows a triangle OAB and parallelogram OALK. So if AB equals any letter, how can we express it as a column vector? Okay. So you only express vectors which have actual coordinates as column vectors. Okay. All right. So let's see what this says. It says the diagram shows a triangle OAB and a parallelogram OALK. The position vector of A is A and the position vector of B is B. Okay. So that basically means that you know OA equals to A and you know that OB equals to B. Okay. K is a point on AB. So K right here is a point on AB such that AK and KB are in the ratio 1:2. Find the position vector of L in terms of A and B. Give your answer in its simplest form. Okay, and this is a 4-mark question. Okay, so that means there is going to be a decent amount of working that's required. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's O-levels or IGCSE as far as vectors are concerned. It's more or less the same difficulty level and even the type of questions are the same. Okay. Now, let's see what we can do. So, finding the position vector of L basically means that you need to find out OL. Okay. Now, since it's a parallelogram, remember that this is going to be equal to A. Okay. And yeah, just remember that this is going to be equal to A. Okay. Now, what else can we do over here? Now, you can find out AB. How? By simply doing AO plus OB. Now, AO is going to be equal to minus A and OB is equals to B. So now we know that AB is equals to minus A plus B. Okay. Okay, how does this help? Now, if you look at the question tells you that AK and KB are in the ratio 1:2. Okay. Now, the thing is, you don't know what AK is, you don't know what KB is. Okay. But what you can do is you can find out AK as a fraction of the total. That means it's going to be equal to 1/3 of AB. And at the same time, you can find out KB as a fraction of the total. That means it's going to be 1/3 of AB. So in other words, this is going to be 1/3 of minus A plus B. And this also is, actually this is going to be 2/3. 2/3 of minus A plus B. Yeah. Now, how does this help? We don't know, but pretty sure it's going to help. Okay. Now, let's see what we can do. Now, you need to find out what? You need to find out OL. Now, let's see what's a decent route that can take us from O to L. So, we could do OB. Okay. And then we can do K. And then we can do BK actually. O to B. So, O to B. And then from B to K. Okay, O to B, B to K, and then from K to L. Okay, so that's a good route. Plus KL. Okay, so OB is equal to B. Now, what is BK going to be, considering that KB is equals to 2/3 minus A plus B? So BK is going to be 2/3 of A minus B. Okay, the signs are going to change. Remember that BK, if you're working out BK, so that's going to be equal to 2/3 of A minus B. Okay, so 2/3 of A minus B plus KL, which is something that we already worked out, it's equal to A. Okay, so now there's a lot of simplification that's required. B plus 2/3A minus 2/3B plus A. So 2/3A plus A is going to be 5/3A. Okay, and B minus 2/3B is going to be plus 1/3 of B. So there you go. Now you have your answer, which is 5/3A plus 1/3B. Okay, and you can write this as, you can take 1/3 common and you can write it as 5A plus B, but again, it makes no difference. It doesn't matter how you write it. Okay, now let me see if there are any relevant questions. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's pick another difficult question? Okay, let's pick this question. This is also from IGCSE, May June 2021, paper 4, variant 2. Okay, let's see what this says. So it says here OABC is a parallelogram. Yeah, I think this was relatively easier. You're right. OABC is a parallelogram. Okay. O is the origin. All right. M is the midpoint of OB. Okay, that's great. N is the point on AB such that AN and NB are in the ratio 3:2. OA equals to P and OC equals to Q. Okay. Find in terms of P and Q in its simplest form, OP. Okay, so I'm going to read the question again and see what it is that I can find out. So since OABC is a parallelogram, immediately you know that CB is also going to be equal to P, and you also know that AB is also going to be equal to Q. Okay. Now, M is the midpoint of OB. Since we don't have OB, so we're not going to write that down. Okay, but yeah, I think that's enough. So let's find out OB. So for OB, we're going to do OC plus CB. OC plus CB. So OC is equals to Q and CB is equals to P. So there you go. Q plus P, or you can write it as P plus Q. However you want to write it, doesn't matter. Okay. Then it says CM. Okay, how do we find out CM? Let's see. So this is a 2-mark question. Now remember OM, since M is the midpoint of OB, OM is going to be half of P plus Q. Okay, now you can find out CM by simply going from C to O and then from O to M. Okay, so how do you go from C to O? C to O is going to be minus Q, and then from O to M, let's see what is that going to be. O to M is going to be half of P plus Q. We've already worked that out. Now when you simplify this, you get minus Q plus half P plus half Q. So half P as it is, Q minus Q plus half Q is minus 1 upon 2Q. So half P minus half Q. Now if you want, you can take half common. Okay, let's see what we have. Sir, if AB equals to X, how do you express it as a column vector? Now see, I think I've already answered this. You can only express any vector as a column vector when you know the coordinates. Okay, that is when you express it as a column vector. Okay, other than that, if you want to write it like this, if let's say, and this is something that we do in add maths, not necessarily in maths. Okay, so yeah. Okay, then comes Mn. Let's see how we can find out Mn. So let's pick a nice route that will take us from M to N. So first we go from M to B. Okay, and then we go from B to N. Okay, now one thing to note about AN and NB is that they were in the ratio 3:2. Okay, so that means AN is basically 3/5 of AB. Okay, and that also means that NB is going to be in the ratio, is going to be 2/5 of AB. Okay, so that means this is equal to 3/5 of Q, and this is going to be equal to 2/5 of Q. Okay, so MB plus BN. Now MB is going to be half of P plus Q. So MB is going to be half of P plus Q, or half P plus half Q. Okay, since M is the midpoint of OB. Okay, and OB is P plus Q, and then plus BN. Now BN is going to be the opposite of NB. That means it's going to be minus 2 upon 5Q. Okay, now this requires a bit of simplification. So half P as it is, there's nothing we can do to simplify this. Okay, but if you simplify half Q minus 2 upon 5, okay, if you do it right, you get plus 1 upon 10Q. Okay, let's use a calculator to be sure. So 1 upon 2 minus 2 upon 5. Yep, you get 1 upon 2 positive. Okay. Okay, let me see if there are any relevant questions. Sir, when will you do add math stream? Probably this weekend. Yes. Sir, are you teaching in the city school? Nope, not anymore. Used to. Sir, okay, I've already answered that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, part 2. Let's see what part 2 says. Part 2 says CB and ON are extended to meet at T. Okay, so let's do just that. In fact, let's take a screenshot of this. Oops. Okay. So it says here CB and ON are extended to meet at D. So CB and ON are extended to meet at D. Okay. Now the point where they meet is, according to the question, point point D. Okay, let's drag this to the left. All right. Then it says find the position vector of D in terms of P and Q. Give your answer in its simplest form. Okay. Sir, are you ignoring my question? What is your question? I can't see your question. Okay. Please ask again. I'll let you know. Okay. Sir, can then be a stream older topics? Yeah, I will stream more often. Okay, that's fine. Nothing to worry about. Sir, could you please let me know soon on Insta? Okay, when registration start, I will share all the details with you. Okay. All right, now coming back to this question, let's get through this question and then I'll take your questions. So it says find the position vector of D, which basically means OD in its simplest terms of P and Q. Okay, give your answer in its simplest form. Okay. Now what we have over here are similar triangles. Okay. Now this is a difficult question, so make sure to pay close attention. So you have two triangles that are similar to each other. One is the one that I'm highlighting in blue, and the other is the one that I'm highlighting also in blue. Okay, so I'll write it down basically. So triangle ODC is similar to triangle NDB. Okay, so pay close attention. ODC and triangle NDB are similar. Now why is that? That's because this line right here, these two lines are parallel. Okay, and this is a shared length. Okay, BD is just an extension of CB, so this is a shared length. Now the best way to prove similar triangles is with the help of angles. Okay, but here you don't have to prove that two triangles are similar. You already know that. Okay, but how do you know? That is something you should be very clear about. Okay, so one angle is a shared angle, and that's angle D. And then remember that this angle is going to be the same as this angle. Okay, and then this angle, which is the third angle, is going to be the same as this. Okay, so as a result, what you have two similar triangles. Okay, in fact, I'll leave the marks as it is so you can see exactly what's going on. Okay, now when you have two triangles that happen to be similar, that means there's going to be a ratio of lengths also. Okay, so OD is going to be in the same ratio as ND. Okay, but that's really not helpful because we don't have OD nor do we have ND. Okay, and DC, okay, so DC and DB are going to be in the same ratio. Okay, and at the same time OC and NB are also going to be in the same ratio, first and third. Okay, now OC and NB is something that we have from before. Okay, we know that OC is equals to Q. Okay, and we know that NB, we figured it out earlier, NB is equal to 2/5 of Q. Okay, 2/5 of Q. Now with the help of this, here's what we can do. We can find out the ratio between DC and DB. Okay, now DC and OB, we know that OB, we worked it out earlier. We know that. Now with the help of this, basically what we can do is we can find out the ratio in which they're similar. Okay, so if we cross it out, so we have 1 over 2 upon 5, which means this is basically equal to 5 upon 2. So that means these two triangles are similar in the ratio 5:2. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that DC, okay, DC and OB are also going to be in the same ratio, 5:2. Okay, DC and OB are also going to be in the same ratio, and that is 5:2. Okay, now how does this help? DC and, okay, no, I can't read my own handwriting. It's actually DC and DB. Yeah, so DC and DB are also going to be in the ratio of 5:2. Okay, now how does this help? Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to use the space that's given over here. So we know now that DC and DB are in the ratio of 5:2. Okay, so from the previous parts, we already know what Okay, wait a minute. From the previous parts, let's see, what do we know? DC and DB. Okay, DC and DB are in the ratio of 5:2. Okay, now here's how this works. Pay close attention. DC is basically 5 parts, okay, and DB is basically how many parts? DC, that's basically equal to 2 parts, okay. Now what that means that CB is basically equal to how many parts? CB is equal to 5 parts, okay. Now I'll repeat this because it's slightly tricky. So DC and DB are in the ratio of 5:2. So DC is 5 parts and DB is 2 parts, okay. How do we know this? We know this through similar triangles, and we know this by simplifying 1 over 2.5, okay. Okay, now how does this help? This helps us like this. What do we have to find really? We have to find basically CD. Now with the help of this, we can form another ratio, and that is between CD and CB. Now what's the ratio between CD and CB? The ratio between CD and CB is going to be 5:3. Now the good thing is we already know what CB is. We know that CB is basically equal to Q, which is equal to what? Is equal to P, sorry, not Q. P, which is equal to 5/3. Now if you cross multiply, you know that CD turns out to be what? CD turns out to be 5/3P. Okay. Now this is something that is going to help us find OD. So OD is equal to OC plus CD. Now OC is equals to what? OC is equals to Q. And what is CD equal to? CD we just found out is equal to 5/3P. And there you go. That is your final answer. Q plus 5/3P. Okay, now this was quite a difficult question. That's exactly why you can see I highlighted it red. Okay, and I hope you guys have understood this. I'll quickly give you guys a recap so you know exactly how it works. Okay, sir, do you teach in any Islamabad schools? But I'm located in Karachi, so obviously I don't teach in any Islamabad schools. Okay, so basically you have two similar triangles, ODC and NDB. Now that basically means that all the lengths, the corresponding lengths, are going to be in the same ratio. Now the good thing is we know we have DC and DB, okay, and with the help of that we can find out, sorry, we have OC and NB. OC is basically equal to Q and NB is basically 2/5 of Q, okay. So with the help of that we can find out what ratio these two triangles are similar in, okay. Now once you know what these two triangles are similar in, that means the ratio between CD and BD is going to be 5:2, which means that CB is going to be 3 parts, 5 minus 2, so that's 3 parts, okay. That means CD and CB are in the ratio of 5:3, and the reason we're doing that is because we know what CB is. CB is equal to P, so CD is equals to 5/3P. And once you have CD, you can find out OD by simply doing OC plus CD. So there you go, Q plus 5/3P, okay. And I think we're gonna stop here. Okay, now I will encourage you guys to solve all the rest of the questions that I've attached over here, okay. And there's another worksheet which contains all the answers, so you guys can check your answers also. And just don't immediately do the difficult questions. I would strongly suggest to do the easy and the medium level questions and then do the hard questions. Sir, is it necessary to refresh the concepts of similarity before attempting? Not really. You don't really have to do similar. Just go over basic concepts of similar triangles, and that should be more than enough, okay. You don't need to sit down and study the entire topic, okay. Just go over the basic concepts. Anyway, so I'm gonna stop here. Okay, I hope you guys have understood everything that we have covered so far, and hopefully there's gonna be another stream over the weekend for AdMaths, okay. So yeah, let's see. I'll announce on my Instagram, okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, so take care everyone. See you guys.